Hi folks, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to continue on with the Adafruit TFT display. I wasn't very happy with how the wiring would have turned out, so I set out to improve on it. This video will take us through the improvements. Here we have the Arduino Mega and the TFT display. I have the TFT connected with jumpers so I can mount it away from the Arduino. This version is a TFT shield, which normally is mounted to the Arduino. I bought the wrong TFT, but still need to make it work. Here's the mounted TFT and new wiring. No more jumpers. Let's take a look at how this was done. The first step is to create a housing that can hold some JST XH connectors. This housing exists to protect the TFT wiring. The sets of holes and channels are for the 90-degree connector sockets. Here's a timeline view of the housing construction, as well as a spacer. It's always fun to watch 3D printing time-lapse. Here's the TFT and housing. You can see that I've added some JST X8 sockets. There are two sets of these sockets, the inner set for the TFT and the outer set for the connectors going to a shield mounted on the Arduino. The TFT display sits in the bezel that was printed out in the first video, and the housing sits on top of the TFT and bezel. The outer sockets are for the wiring harness connectors. For the TFT terminals, we'll use 90-degree angled headers. I've trimmed the angle headers to the lengths required. They just fit over the TFT pins. Here's the inner side of the housing. The sockets will get their own wiring harnesses. Now we move on to soldering the inner harness connections. Next, we're soldering the JST sockets. These connect the pairs of sockets on each side of the housing. By the way, the clear gel I'm applying is flux. I'm cleaning everything with isopropyl alcohol. Now we build the 7-pin wiring harness. Add some heat shrink tubing and we're done. We're moving on to the Arduino shield. This shield contains an opto-isolator for a 12-volt signal, as well as the connectors for the display. This is the ICSP socket, and the 2-pin and 7-pin JST sockets. All right, here's the wiring adapter. I've got the wiring harness. I've got the connectors soldered on both sides. Goes like this. Got a little port here for SD card if I choose to use one in the future. Can't really see it. Maybe it's not in focus, but let's just go ahead and plug it together and we'll get it into focus. So the first thing to do is plug these in. I've got some pieces of electrical tape just to be sure that when it's in the housing it doesn't short out. Next, the second connector. Finally, the third one. This one's just the power ground and 5 volts. Okay, that's about it. Let's push it down in here. There we go. Put the cover on it. So here's the original Bezel I printed out in the first video, and I just put some cut off some 3mm stainless screws and just using them as studs. I couldn't buy studs long enough in 3mm, so I just cut some screws off. There we go. Let's get this in here, seat it. That's it. Okay, so it's flush all the way around. That's it. Okay. All right. Now I have a shield mounted on the other side. Here's the Arduino Mega, And I have I made a shield. Now the shield has an LED and another connector, and it also has an opto-isolator circuit. So it takes a 12-volt signal and safely converts that into a high-low signal for the Arduino to use. I already had the shield for that. So what I did do is I ran the rest of the circuitry for another connector here, JST connector. It's 7-pin and a 2-pin for the power. And that's where our wiring harness from the back of the TFT display will plug into, obviously. So let's plug this in. Whoops, got that the wrong way around. There we go. Okay, now the moment of truth. Let's see which way is up here. This is up. So let me plug in some power. This board is already, of course, programmed. Let's see. All right, success. Next, we're going to mount the display on the control panel, but first we need to get a few things out of the way. The plan was to use nuts and washers on the M3 studs, but I didn't do a good job cleaning up the threads after cutting the studs to length. This made putting the nuts on more work than it should have been. And here we have the final result. The bezel looks good, and the other side with the cable raceway covers in place. It turned out well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Take care.